Welcome to our first ever Market in Public Hangout.
Yeah, great to be here. Great to be here, Rob.
It's the two Robins teaming up. I love this. We've been wanting to do this for a little bit now. I think like a lot of these live stream content can sometimes be so formal and feel so structured. I think it's also we wanted to explore something that was a little bit more casual. We do these catch-ups, pretty regularly, just like chit-chatting about, what each of us are building, troubleshooting, problems and challenges that we're facing. And, we thought, why not just, include everyone else into our little catch-up sessions?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like we both love building in public, really. Like that's something that we both gravitate to. So why don't we just do this with marketing as well, and see how we
Yeah.
can market in public, right?
No, I love that. Okay, cool, perfect. Should we dive straight into like quick intros for everyone that perhaps might be new here?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can go ahead if you like, Robin. My name is Robin, and yeah, I'm a marketer by trade. Like, been into specifically crypto marketing for a few years. Before that, in iGaming. And recently, like, what really got my appeal is AI, and the world is moving towards more of an AI marketing kind of landscape. So yeah, like when chatting with Robin about that specific topic, I felt like we had a lot vibing going on about it. And I'm diving into vibe coding as well recently, and that actually has been elevated my marketing game. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Yeah, no, I love that. We actually met like how long ago? Maybe like a year ago. I think because I reached out to you on LinkedIn, right? Because I think I saw that you were very actively, marketing and building with a lot of these like Web3 projects. Saw that you were also experimenting with some of these like AI systems, and so I reached out, I think, earlier last year when I was doing user research for Axie, as we're starting to build Axie. We'll give an intro on that as well. And we just kind of like clicked in terms of like our views around how marketing is going to evolve, especially with these new systems and tools emerging as well. So yeah, it's been a wild ride since then. Great. So yeah, I'm also Robin, co-founder of Axy.Digital. I've spent 10 years building and investing in early stage startups. Axie is my third venture. And when I'm not building my own ventures, I do go-to-market and marketing consulting for other emerging tech startups. So over the last 3-4 years, I've worked with over 30 companies in the Web3, AI, SaaS space, to essentially help them do everything from market research, go to market strategy, product launches, marketing operations, and setting up systems for marketing operations. And if essentially as almost like a fractional CMO. And essentially earlier last year was when we saw a really interesting opportunity to build these AI systems that would plug a really interesting gap in this market. I think we saw that the expectation or companies needed to have much deeper marketing expertise in order to keep up with how quickly the world is shifting. But not only that, right? That in order to compete effectively, companies also needed to have a lot more AI expertise internally as well. And that we kind of saw this whole gold rush, right? Maybe 12 months, 18 months ago, of suddenly every marketer was trying to felt like they were FOMOing and falling behind. There was this like intense pressure to upskill yourself and learn all these like AI systems and all these AI tools. I think now it's been a few months since then, and the market has already evolved. And so with Axie, essentially, we saw an opportunity to provide a tool in the market to the market that would encompass a lot of these go-to-market as well as AI expertise, to essentially make the job easier, right, for these founders, builders, marketers to not necessarily have to be such native builders themselves as well. So that's kind of like a very high level introduction of what I'm working on these days.
Yeah, and it's great because like when I saw Axie for the first time, Robin, like I was like, damn, I really love this. And I told you that back then. I was like, wow, I loved it from like moment one, right? Where it's, and people will see how how you can use it. But I was like, oh yeah, this is really what we need. And oh yeah, this is really what we need as well. And, so yeah, like I'm quite excited to do this series with you because I know how much you are into this and how much you know about this space. Like what impressed me is a lot as well about yourself is like, I'm a kind of an all-round marketeer, but I'm not an SEO specialist. And, I always been a bit in clinch with SEO people in my corporate jobs before, because sometimes we had like, split views. But the way you explained to me how you could do SEO in this kind of day and age is like, has really like changed my perspectives, right? So
I love
I love,
that. Thank you.
I love to jump into that, but maybe for everyone else that also is not like an SEO specialist per se, there's a lot going on now. Like before, you only had the word SEO, but now you've got AEO, GEO, AI, search visibility. Like, can you break it down maybe for us? Like what are the differences? What does each mean, etc.?
Yeah, 100%, right? I think something that we started seeing maybe 12 months ago was, this, a lot of like new channels were opening because of AI, and there was a lot of excitement around like how that is going to change how people discover and learn about businesses. I think, 12 months ago, we were very used to AI systems kind of existing within a vacuum, trained on old historical data, and therefore not necessarily the most reliable platform or surface area for search and discovery. But that is actively changing, right? Now we have models that are indexing real-time data or pretty recent data, as well as models that are, obviously doing live web searches. And so the core difference is now then how would these AI models index these, index information and showcase information differently from, traditional search engines if AI chat interfaces are essentially that new interface for search, right? And so I think what's really interesting is that the industry hasn't necessarily it's that early we're so early in this space that there hasn't necessarily been like an industry term for it yet. We had search engine optimization, SEO, but now, that essentially is transforming into all these different terms. We hear GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. We hear AEO, Answer Engine Optimization, even LLMO, which is kind of funny, but it's actually large language model optimization, So there's so many different ways of calling this, essentially simply just because it's such a nascent market and we haven't necessarily arrived on like that industry standard, like colloquial term yet. And I think that's what also is what also makes it so exciting, right? The fact that this is such a white space, so undefined. There are definitely a lot of players out there in the market, but generally what we're seeing is, we're still early enough that businesses are kind of in one of two camps, right? Or maybe even three camps. One is that they have no idea about it. They've never heard of something like this. One camp is that, perhaps they've tried to build some of these systems themselves. And the third camp is that they're already using like tools like Axie and some of the other tools in the market. And, super excited to be, talking through that as well. But before we dive into like the GEO stuff, right? Like I wanted to also maybe like chat a little bit about like what AI native marketing is, because I think, when we first started coming together to kind of like chat through this and ideate around, this series, I think something that we both really landed on and like really connected on is like how beyond just GEO, like this entire space of AI native marketing is still so nascent and so undefined. Like truly is, everything is an experiment at like the frontier of like what, marketing could look like for the next like 5 to 10 years. Like we're actively in that transformation right now. And so, want to also quickly chat about like, yes, while GEO is new, where really everything else in this space of AI native marketing is super new.
Yeah, correct. Like the way I look at it is basically because, you know, as a marketing agency founder, kind of, it's my clients basically that define kind of what kind of marketing they do need and stuff. And, you know, before it was, you know, everything was kind of set in stone and traditional, and there was not like a lot of, you know, unexplored areas. Basically, it was just like you either knew it or you don't know it, right? But now, like, since that everyone understands like AI is not going to go anywhere, it's not a hype anymore. People are using it daily. You know, it's integrated in many of the office tools now and stuff. Suddenly, you know, founders of startups and are thinking now more AI first, and, you know, with everything that they are kind of you know, brainstorming about, they're like, yeah, okay, but, you know, what is the AI approach with this? So, you know, and it obviously comes back with in the SEO kind of topic, but you see it in many other things. So, for instance, there's been quite a demand from a client to actually produce AI marketing related stuff. You know, one of the things that that I've been building for a client was basically a dashboard. But now, instead of having, you know, a dashboard that pulls analytics and analysis from like different channels, you know, whether it's your social channels, your Google Analytics, and all that stuff, now it just, you know, not only pulls that data all in one place, but also uses AI to already like you know, pre-analyze and, you know, synthesize and summarize and do all that stuff. So it's like, you know, anything, like, the way I look at it is like anything you can do, you know, can AI improve that? You know, and if it can,
Mm,
you know, it's going to be a question. Okay, how? Sometimes that means automation, and sometimes it means basically you've got a, you know, a very fancy calculator next to you that helps you out with you crunching whatever answer you need, basically. Yeah. So that's
yeah.
the way I see it. Well, I love to hear from you, because, like, yeah, you know, your entire Axie is AI native.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like what surprised me the most, I think especially as like, when I was doing go-to-market consulting and like,
Mm,
setting up these like marketing operations for these like startups. And I think what surprised me the most was like how human reliant, dependent, and coordinated marketing still is in this day and
mm,
age. And generally when I spoke to clients, when I speak to founders, the what surprised me the most is that a lot of people still think that marketing is more an art than a science. That they think it's all about like the creative campaigns, and they think it's all about like fancy positioning and messaging, and everything is very qualitative. And I think a lot
mm,
of people that have worked with me in the past like couple of years will know me for saying this, which is that like marketing is absolutely a science, right? It's not about coming up with creative campaigns and putting it out there and having fun with it. Like, sure, yes, there is a component like that, but marketing essentially is understanding what the market wants, reacting to it, incorporating to it, and essentially being able to meet the market where they are, right? So it is essentially, from my perspective at least, it should be so much more data driven. And then what shocked me the most is that for majority of companies that I've worked with, 80-90% of companies I've worked with, this is not the case, right? So I think this perspective of like,
mm,
how do we actually operate marketing in a way that's way more data driven, that, and as a result also way more algorithmic, was the entire premise that underpins Axie, and also a sense like how I think AI native marketing is going to evolve, right? Meaning that it's no longer the human making the strategic decision or qualitative decision on what to put out or what to say. Essentially it is the numbers, the data, and the machines that will effectively make these decisions. And the reason for that is simply because, obviously these AI systems can process way more data than any human can, right? Whether it's understanding where
mm,
the market is, understanding headlines, search trends, all these different signals from the market, social trends, whatnot, competitor updates. And then essentially how do you then generate campaigns, or how do you then like execute campaigns that react to these trends or jump onto these trends, and then how do you optimize based on the performance, right? So this 3-step process, used to take marketing teams, like good marketing teams, like I would say, maybe even like months, sometimes like if they're really, really good, sometimes weeks, minimally, right, to kind of go through this entire process. And I think in this day and age, even that timeline of, a couple of weeks in order to go from research to execution to measurement is already way too slow, right? So I think the future of marketing is definitely going to move at a much faster pace. And in order for that to happen, we need these AI systems to be able to crunch the data, make the decisions, implement these and execute these campaigns at machine speed, and not necessarily reliant on the human input and the human decision making process.
Yeah, Robin, like I hear two key things here that just clicks, right? So I've been doing marketing for over a decade, and back then when I started off, it was all about data-driven marketing. Oh yeah, we're basically the advanced marketeers now because we do data-driven marketing. And the other thing that was kind of you had obviously I was just in that end stage of mobile first. Everything was mobile first, everything was data driven, and the other thing was, oh yeah, we have real-time data. Oh yeah, because before you had like all these reports that would pull in data on a weekly base, then it became a daily base, and then it was like, we can have an advantage wherever you were a marketer if we have real-time data. Like now we are at a point where it's like, yeah, all these things are actually doable in the best possible way with agents, with AI, right? So it's a very interesting development because now as well, like as and you might dig into that a little bit maybe, is like we now start not only being the kind of advanced marketing kind of DNA, but we also will be speaking towards actually AI agents, I think, when we do marketing, instead of speaking to humans, because humans are actually too slow to actually catch up with everything that's going on. And I think that's sometimes a little bit scary, but it's just the reality, I think.
Yeah, actually, like a few months ago, I put up like a LinkedIn post actually like talking about this. I think commenting on like the dead internet theory, right? Essentially that, as the internet starts operating at a speed way beyond, human consumption and human like capability, that or our ability to process information, that, one theory is that the internet will die. But then I think my point of view was that, that's not necessarily the case, that instead the internet will fracture, right? There will always be kind of like a machine, there will essentially fracture into 2 layers. There will be firstly a machine consumption layer where it would be these agents interacting with one another, consuming and producing information, exchanging information, but there will always be a human consumption layer as well, because humans inherently want to connect. And I just don't see a world where humans would essentially get off the internet and not necessarily connect or have a platform to connect and exchange information amongst themselves, right? So now I think we're in this like really interesting like transition point of then all this content that we're putting out, or all these marketing campaigns that we're putting out, we're still kind of like juggling both, especially with GEO. And as we get into like the more technicalities of like, how to do GEO well, you definitely see this more blatantly, right? That we are trying to balance what human consumption and what machine like what the human and the machine would want in, any piece of marketing content or marketing campaign and whatnot. But I think, over the next like 12 to 18 months, we're definitely going to see perhaps like this fracture a little bit more. Perhaps, we're going to go back to a similar model as, with traditional SEO, right? Where a lot of these pages like are not even meant for human consumption, and they're meant purely for machine indexing. And, perhaps the human layer will exist, completely off, on completely different channels and platforms. And, we just don't know yet.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. But like, I think the only thing we can do as marketeers in this, in this space is to adapt, right? So whenever but you know, there will be changes. We just adapt accordingly, and we just have to tweak. And I think there might be, indeed, there might be like a balance, a struggle balance between, you know, more machine and then more human, and then, you know, like I can see a bit of a push there between those two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you know, at the same time, like, I mean, but this is also precisely why we're doing these hangouts, right? Because like we're
Mm.
both, you know, like coming up to those like challenges and frontiers, you know, at the same time. We're all experiencing these challenges at the same time, you know. So why not create this space to kind of share in those, you know, challenges, share in troubleshooting, share in this exploration
Yeah.
of new ideas, new ways of doing things, and you know, essentially like evolve, you know, alongside each other, like as this market matures as well. So yeah, it's super fascinating.
Yeah, you know, like what I see is, especially with those, you know, while we're experimenting, and also the struggles that we face, like when we are doing those, is that like um, SEO. Let's go to SEO. Is when, you know, I'm not an SEO person, but like, you know, I can vibe code, and nowadays I can actually do SEO because I just ask the machine to help me out with it, right? But I don't really know exactly what I'm doing, and you know, there's this like unverifiable part of it where, you know, I do something, I think it's, you know, it might work, but it's still a lot of manual stuff, manual work that is involved, you know. And it's and I can imagine, like, for anyone else that is not into vibe coding or whatever, like, you know, there's just like not enough for them to find, really, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
like, I think you know, it's like, in the future there will be, things will be more clear. That's the way I feel it. But at the moment, it's kind of, you know, everyone is swimming around and is trying things out and figure out like, oh, you know, I can now do this, but you know, it's often not enough, right? So
yeah.
yeah, like I would love you to dive more deeper into this, like GEO and SEO and what it all is, because yeah.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, so just to put it out there as well, like, you know, we've spent the last, you know, 10 months, 12 months, you know, very focused on doing research on all these new like AI native channels and AI native workflows. I've consolidated some of our research, specifically around the GEO channel, like in this document. So happy to kind of like, you know, quickly like, you know, walk through it and, you know, share some of our latest findings. If anyone, you know, watching the stream, watching the videos is interested in getting access to this document, you know, drop us a DM, leave a comment. You know, we'll shoot you this, you know, document. It's very much a work in progress. As you know, we learn more, as the space evolves, we're kind of adding more information into this document as well. So it's very much living and breathing. And so I think maybe just to quickly start out, I think the main myth that we are constantly still hearing is that, you know, like SEO is dead, right? But I think that is actually not true. And what we're seeing more and more is that, you know, GEO essentially sits actually as a layer on top of, you know, SEO, traditional SEO best practices. So I think while SEO alone is no longer sufficient, it is by no means dead. And I think there are a few key differences, you know, just for the benefit of everyone, you know, watching this as well, to kind of like ensure that we're all on the same page. Essentially, the core differences between GEO and SEO can be broken down to three areas. The first one essentially is the outcome, right? What are you optimizing for when it comes to GEO? I think in traditional SEO, you know, you're essentially trying to show up on the first page of search results. You're trying to drive traffic. You're trying to drive clicks. You know, you're trying to rank higher and higher on that first page. The difference here with GEO is that actually this matters less, right? It's not so much about ranking. It's not so much about traffic or being included within the search results. Essentially, what you're trying to do is have these LLMs and models understand the reference your content, your information when answering questions that users might be searching, right? So, you know, this could be included in as a citation. This could be included in as a mention. But the whole idea is that you're actually trying to influence the answers that these large language models are showing when users are querying or searching different questions, right? And so in this case, it's less about volume or repetition, but it's more about precision, right? So it brings us to kind of the next point as well, that is no longer just about optimizing for specific keywords. Instead, it is about understanding the problems and questions that users might be searching for, and how do you then frame your solution, your product, your service to answer those questions very precisely. And so generally what we see is that the more precise your content is, the more precise your framing, your positioning, your answer is, the higher the likelihood that these models would kind of pull your data, your paragraph, your information pretty much as complete as possible, right? The whole idea is that you want it to pull information that you want to essentially control what these LLMs are saying about you, and not necessarily for them to kind of create their own interpretation of what you do. So your goal here is, how do you answer precise problems and answer precise questions? And the third piece is less, again, coming back to volume, less about volume, more about information gain. I think in this day and age, we have plenty of information out there in this world. Models are not necessarily looking for the highest repetition or the most commonly repeated concepts. Rather, they're looking for the most unique, the most specific, the most valuable answer they can provide to the user. And hence, when answering specific problems, specific questions in your GEO content, it's really also about framing it from the perspective of like, is this new? Is this unique? Does this provide some type of information gain? And this is something that we're seeing LLMs tend to prefer as well. So all in all, three key differences. And so then how do you actually, implement this into your GEO workflows? How do you implement this into your content is kind of like that next question. But
That's
generally, Sorry.
Yeah, Robin, that's super interesting. So, like, to me, it feels like, maybe I'm a little biased, but like that should be actually how SEO should work, right? Like, people are looking for answers, and and the best answers are being shown, basically, instead of people are looking for answers and the best keywords are are the pages that you click on. Because how often have you had like that you Google something, you click the top pages, maybe it might be blogs or whatever, and you just don't get the answers you're looking for, or it's just like, oh yeah, like all generic content, and you're like, yeah, what, this is not valuable to me. So yeah, like I see a world where everything, all that search is going to move into GEO and AEO,
100%.
I think.
If it hasn't already, right? I can't remember what exactly the statistics is, but what's interesting is that the AI search summary doesn't show up, especially when you search in Google, doesn't show up in all search queries yet. It only shows up in a portion of search queries, which is really fascinating, right? And I really wonder, and that's something that we're looking into as well, in terms of like, why is it a matter of the amount of data that's being indexed? Is it a matter of just like computation of why certain queries will pull up that AI search summary and others don't? So yet to be seen. But so as a quick recap, generally when it comes to GEO, in order to do GEO well, it is, we still need to ensure that the foundational, SEO best practices are being met, meaning you have clean technical structure with a crawlable site, clean URLs, you have clear hierarchy of your content, you have like internal linking, all these like basic stuff, right? Nothing really exciting or revolutionary here. And then lastly, of course, your EAT signals, which just ensures that that your content is credible, is relevant, is authoritative, is trustworthy, and so on, right? So things like that are still relevant. However, now there is this additional expectation of information gain being a lot more specific, a lot more precise when it comes to describing concepts, explaining concepts, answering problems, answering questions, and so on. So that's kind of like the core differences. You mentioned a couple of weeks ago that, or even earlier in the stream, you mentioned a little bit about how you try to solve some of this for some of your clients. I'm kind of curious about two questions, right? One is, in your work with your clients, like what is that general understanding about this space? Because I think it is very noisy, and I think understanding is very scattered, right? Some companies are super advanced when it comes to understanding GEO. Some companies are a little bit newer to the game. So I'm just curious, what are you seeing in terms of level of understanding? And then the second question, which is, how are companies, going about solving this problem? How are you going about solving this for your clients right now?
Yeah, like that's very good one. Like so basically since what is now February, I think since Q3, Q4, with my clients, this has come up. Before, SEO wasn't often discussed with us at all, because we're not an SEO agency, right? But now with GEO, it has come up because no one really know exactly what to do, but they do know that it's important. Like everyone knows that the majority of the world is now using ChatGPT, and everyone wants to rank in that. And also because it's new to a lot of companies that before would be, they would understand SEO and that it would be needed, but it's a very hard game to win, because there are a lot of large corporations that can spend a lot on SEO, and you don't typically win from them. But now there's this like window of opportunity where with GEO, you actually, as a smaller company, can actually you can win an SEO game now. So that's what I've heard from clients, and then the understanding is like they know it's important. They typically do not know anything about it really, right? And often the misconception is just to write more content and to write more blogs and to basically go the keyword route, right? But there's more. There's more there. Like in one of our first conversations, like I came to the understanding that it's a lot about the formatting and about the structure, and it's about making it readable for these LLMs, right? So that's one thing, I think, and still that's kind of one of the first kind of basic changes. But then there's so much more like that goes into this, I think. And what is I've seen a few like different, I can't say strategies or tactics, and some of them involve a lot of on the technical side. Some of them are more looking at like how can we externally influence these LLMs, because a lot of them are they're data crawling certain sites, and so there's it is a game changer compared to SEO. So there's like there's a lot that comes with it, and I typically people don't really know exactly what they need to do, especially not like in what kind of order and stuff. They know they've heard some things, they have seen posts, right? And if you go by those, and we all know by these posts, someone is trying to sell you something like oh yeah, you can rank number one in ChatGPT, download this playbook kind of thing, right? So there's been a lot of noise basically, Robin.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And how have you tried to, or how are you kind of like, working with your clients to solve some of these things right now, or help them, show up in AI?
Taking it step by step, right? So making sure that we have pay some attention to the formatting, making sure that like typically, like I've never been a keyword guy, so for me this feels more natural, writing for answers that the users might be looking for. So that is something. This is like one key tip that you gave me, I think, about like writing FAQs in blogs that started to implement. So there's things like that. But then there are a lot of things that I know we haven't implemented yet, and it's like the thing with this as well is like the space is evolving so fast. You don't want to commit to just like one thing just because you think that is the thing kind of thing. So yeah, like it's like people are like figuring it out. So we do bits and pieces, but there's no kind of cohesive, coherent plan currently, because it's not
Yeah.
really our area of expertise.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating though. Like how many, this is also a bit as like a left field question, right? But like how many, bets do you think like the average marketer now has like, going or experiments going in terms of like, testing new channels or keeping up with like AI native marketing? Like, how many of these like experiments do you think like marketers are doing at the same time, right? Because I think that was also a while ago, obviously GEO AI search is a big one, but I think like another one was like talking about how like Reddit was the number one site that soars in LLMs for a little bit, right? And therefore like suddenly everyone was rushing into Reddit, and now that's
Exactly.
no longer the case. And I have the data to show as well that that's no longer the case, right? So then suddenly everyone is rushing out of Reddit, and to all
Exactly.
these other channels. So sometimes I wonder, I'm just like, man, like how many experiments are we all running at the same time?
Definitely, like 5 times as much as that we used to be, because like with the Reddit thing as well, it's like, yeah, you kind of it's like Reddit is always a thing that's been there for marketeers. It's like
Yeah.
like if you're not into SEO, you always and you're looking for exposure campaigns, then like Reddit always comes up, and then it's like, okay, what can we do on that? We can do an AMA on there, we can do like advertising on there, we can do like organic stuff on there. Oh, it's very restricted. So like if you then want to become an agency focused on that, like you have to go all in. Basically, you have to like build
Mm,
everything around like how can you influence Reddit kind of thing. And I think that's kind of what happened with this like GEO. And it is like I said, like it's like you kind of have to do, if you're not like fully committing to this specific thing, the only way to really get something out of it is just doing the low hanging fruits. It's just like changing, tweaking a few
mm,
things here and there, which then will have like a positive impact. And then you can always double down then if you're very certain. So if you're very
yeah.
certain Reddit is the thing, then you just double down on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I
I mean,
think.
so, but yeah, but that's exactly it, right? So I think we kind of saw this, we had this insight, maybe like 9, 10 months ago as well, that, wow, it is getting so challenging for marketers to keep up with how quickly these channels are evolving. One day Reddit is critical for AI visibility. Another day it could be, oh, Reddit is still like fantastic for like, organic user acquisition. Next day it could be LinkedIn. Next day it could be X. Now it's like TikTok, Instagram. So many different channels to that marketers are essentially expected to like keep up with, be present in, be top of, to essentially show up in as well. And so that's why we also designed like Axie to be quite like agnostically to support channels like quite agnostically. And so that's why we're also positioning Axie as kind of what we call like an algorithmic marketing engine, the ability to truly monitor the market, monitor not just market signals like narratives that are picking up, trends that are picking up, what are people searching for, but also things like what channels are working right now, which channels are users most active in right now, what are they reacting to on each of these individual channels, and then how do you then kind of like consistently show up top of the feed, for all of these channels, right? Not just GEO and AI search, but also things like LinkedIn, X, Reddit, TikTok, Instagram, and so on, right? So I think that's kind of the core differentiator as well, like as well as product insight that we have with Axie, that we're not necessarily designing this as purely just a single like channel solution where it's like, oh, write viral LinkedIn posts or like show up in AI search, but it's more how do you actually keep up with the market and show up where
Mhm.
users are essentially.
Yeah, and that's fantastic, because like that's what you need. Like I think every marketer needs that kind of thing. This where you've got this tool that actually helps you understand what the market is like right now, instead of
Yeah.
going from one to another. Like I love you to show a bit more, maybe. And
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Actually, I mean,
yeah.
I know that you mentioned that one of your clients, when we were kind of like prepping for this, you mentioned that one of your clients is kind of like very actively thinking about GEO and AI search visibility. Perhaps we can kind of like, I can happy to do like a live demo on
Yeah, let's do it.
this.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, perfect. I just need send me their website, some of their materials, maybe
Yeah.
like, the company materials like documentation, white papers, and so on. And I can kind of start with onboarding them, and I'll share my screen
Yeah,
once that is done.
I'll share you a bit like the most basic stuff and that I can
Okay.
share. Yeah.
Of course, of
All
course,
right.
of course.
I send
All
it to
right.
you on Telegram. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. I'm loading them now. All right, let me.
But this is the thing, Ro, like I really love the onboarding of your product, because yeah,
Thank you.
that hooked me in back then.
Exactly. So I think like with Axie, we wanted to design this not necessarily, for expert marketers or go-to-market engineers and whatnot. We really wanted to design this, for founders, for builders that might not have very deep marketing expertise. So the onboarding process is super straightforward. Put in your website. In this case, I put in IXS Finance's website. Axie then went on and found all their marketing channels. So X, Discord, YouTube, this looks pretty good to me. And I've also gone ahead and uploaded some of the documents that you have just sent me, which is super exciting. And let's kick it off. So now essentially Axie has analyzed, all these, all your websites, social channels, your, knowledge base and documents that you've uploaded, and essentially turned that into a structured marketing strategy. So this is essentially kind of helping to think of the marketing strategy as like the control center for the marketing engine, right? It's essentially breaking down all this unstructured data into very specific, inputs that users are able to also, edit and refine if there's
Yeah,
anything that, wants to be
Robin,
fine-tuned. Yeah.
I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you, like, can you edit this? Because like that's obviously, I think something that people always wonder, like, okay, yeah, if the AI makes my strategy, is it the best strategy? Basically, can I, you know,
100%. 100%. Yeah, exactly. So every single one of these fields are editable. So you can come in and, update them as you wish, add in new tags around your calls to action. All this has been pulled from the entire universe of like, publicly available information and knowledge-based information for this company. So taglines, marketing goals. The engine also understands audience. So it's able to identify, okay, IXS's audience are, so and so, institutionals, geographic focuses, industries that they're in, as well as, what is their brand positioning. So this was extracted from the style of writing, the tone, from within the Git book, their blogs, their social channels right now. Axie also found some of their competitors. So right now, Axie found 10 competitors. I'm not sure what you think of this, but we can also add
that looks good. Yeah, that looks good to me.
and you can also add competitors as well if any one of them are missing, especially if you're looking at, smaller competitors. Axie is also able to understand, what industry and vertical and core technology Axis is building within. And lastly, the product, right? So essentially we designed Axie to be a no prompt experience. So this typically would have been all the information that you would deliver to an AI agent or tool through a massive prompt. But instead now Axie breaks this down into this, very granular dashboard to give users like very granular control of these different inputs without having to wrestle and manage this massive prompt, right? So this is purely just the setup phase. And so now essentially what Axie is doing is also putting together a more specific channel plan, right? So like I mentioned, because Axie is meant to be quite channel agnostic, right now we support 3 channels, your GEO blogs, LinkedIn, and X. So in the GEO blog section, users are able to configure things like, what is their publishing schedule for the GEO content? What is their AI search strategy? So all these keywords as well as prompts and semantic phrases have been suggested by Axie based on what it understands on this in this industry, based on the search trends it was able to find, based on what it understands about the business as well. So again, every one of these prompts can be also edited. And again, more granular control as well
But
around key messages and so on.
Robin, that's really good, because then you can, if you know certain, very high intent prompts, you can add it there. You can add those here, which is really, really good,
Exactly.
I think. And when you went a bit, when you went up, scrolled up, I saw it was looking at the. Can you scroll down? Like, it was looking at the keywords and the
Exactly.
secondary keywords. They're very, very accurate, I have to say.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, like, that's really
Thank
cool to
you.
see. That's really
So
cool to see.
this is all also based on a live like market research based on what the search trends are. So I'll also once we finish onboarding and this
Mm.
generally looks good. So the reason why we put this up here as well is to give users like this control, right? To say, hey, actually this industry keyword or this primary keyword or secondary keyword is not necessarily relevant for me anymore because I'm pivoting my strategy and whatnot. And that will you can also then change your prompts based on that. But all this is generated for you. And what's really interesting as well is that this is also dynamic, right? So based on this is generated once as as users are onboarding, but the more users use this tool and the more the market research that Axie does as well refreshes every single week, and based on live search trends, live LinkedIn trends, live social like X trends, this strategy and marketing plan also gets updated, right? So
So it's
if
actually self-learning, basically.
it, exactly 100%. So you can connect your channel,
Mm.
connect the channel to pull performance analytics back in to Axie, and then Axie uses a couple of inputs in order to do the self-learning, right? One is the market signals, where is the market headed? So all these 1,000+ data pipelines that we've built. But the second piece, and also the most critical piece, is performance. So it pulls performance back in to tell the engine what works and what doesn't work, and so it's able to do more of what works essentially. So we can go ahead and finish set up and go into to see what the engine looks like right now. So all this is actually still
Exciting.
in exciting. A lot of this is still in testing. So once the engine is set up, we'll be
Yeah.
able to see two things, right? Since today's discussion is specifically on GEO, Axie will generate a real-time GEO like AI visibility report to show like how IXS is showing up in AI search right now. I'm not sure you've done this analysis before, so maybe this data will be quite interesting for you. And then from that, it would also identify opportunities of how to improve your AI search visibility based on live search trends, based on live market signals. And then the third step is actually automatically turning that into content campaigns and populating your marketing calendar already, right? So the human in the loop experience here is you simply need to, review the content that it's being suggested, or the campaigns that are being suggested by Axie or proposed by Axie, and click approve and schedule for publishing.
Like, this process, if you would have done this manually, it's going to take weeks. No.
Literally. I mean, I used to do this manually for my clients, and it used to take weeks, and now
Yeah.
literally all of this is done, in this time that Axie takes to do its thing. But literally
Yeah.
like maximum 5 minutes, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but cool. So while this is loading, let me see if I refresh this, if it might. So this is also, like I mentioned, all in the testing environment. All of these, we have some features live today already, but the feature that we're launching literally in a couple of days is our AI search visibility dashboard, the insights dashboard. So what you're seeing now is real data, but it is exclusively only available for IXS. If you log into our platform today, Axy.Digital, you're not going to be able to see this just yet. So if you're interested in getting access to this, so yeah, right now it's doing all the analysis. But so if you're interested in getting access to this, shoot me a DM, or leave a comment, on this like post, on this event post, and we will give you. I'll notify you once this is live and once you can start running this for your company and brand as well. But let's see. Sometimes if again, it does take a little bit of time to load sometimes because it's a lot of data that we're trying to showcase in these dashboards. So let's give it a minute to finish loading.
Yeah, I think the lovely part about this is that you get this AI visibility report like in this dashboard view, and you don't have to juggle around certain other tools. Pull it from this tool, then bring me some other analysis from another tool, and then try to put it together. Like it's all in the same platform where you can create the content as well, which is
Exactly.
good option.
Exactly. And like being the ability to action on these insights is also done, natively within the tool, right? The action is done for you, the execution is
Exactly.
done for you.
Because that's one of the things in this AI kind of day and age. It's like there's so many tools, so it's it's a bit ridiculous sometimes.
Interesting. Yeah. How many tools on average are you using?
Like 10 plus, I think.
Okay, amazing. Done. All right, great. So this is
Okay.
IXS Finance's AI visibility report. Let's see. So it found across 113 prompts that Axie generated that are strategic for IXS. It found 14 mentions and 16 citations across all of these four models. And amongst its competitors that we just found just now, it's ranked number 4, which is actually pretty good. So this is a more granular view across each of the models. 4% in ChatGPT, 5% visibility for Perplexity, 2% for Gemini, and 4% for Claude. This is a quick overview as well of this week's content opportunities, which is really quite interesting. So essentially saying that there is 133% increase upward trend of search volume for top 10 utility tokens this past week. So this is essentially happened within the last 7 days. Increase in 8,700% increase on the search of decentralized derivative exchanges, which is actually very fascinating given the market conditions that we're in. 300% increase on best real estate tokenization platform. Who would have known? Who would have thought that people are suddenly interested in real estate tokenization platforms? Buy tokenized real estate as well, increasing 200%. Decentralized exchange coin, another one, 200%. So essentially, this is a summary of all the uptrends of opportunities that people are searching for that none of your competitors or none of IXS competitors are actually ranking for right now yet, or actually producing content to talk about right now.
Robin, that first one is actually very, very relevant at this point for them. So
Yeah, exactly.
I need to do something with that one. I definitely need
Literally.
to.
And the beauty of it is that you don't even need to manually do this yourself, right? So now you know that people are searching top 10 utility tokens and maybe some of the derivative terms as well, utility token versus cryptocurrency, utility tokens. You don't necessarily even need to manually generate content around this. Now, Axie automatically pulls in these opportunities into your content calendar. So now what Axie has done is propose some of these ideas. Let's see. This is fascinating. Around tokenized portfolios, bridging the gap between traditional exchanges and DeFi rails. Let's see. Real world asset financing. So all these, essentially these search trends and these keywords are already automatically being incorporated into this marketing calendar over here that Axie is proposing. And the human in the loop experience, let me see, I seem to be having a small bug. All the human would need to do is essentially review and click generate for any one of these content pieces that look good to them, right? So there is still a little bit of strategic decision making or like taste or preferences that you can exercise. So let's see one on utility tokens. This one we saw an upward trend on real estate, and so now Axie has turned that into a real estate article. Let's go ahead and generate that. Passive holding to yield generation. I think essentially this is also the narrative around utility tokens.
Yeah, the transforming Bitcoin yield is good, and I think the first one on that list was it on-chain as. That one is quite interesting too.
Let's go ahead and generate that. Traditional exchanges and DeFi rails, essentially talking about the derivatives exchanges that we saw as the coming back to here. Let's see, sometimes it's.
But yeah, like you know, it's I think the human in the loop thing is really good, because like, you know, we all as marketeers might have already ideas that we want to kind of get implemented. So you can just take something here, you know, that is kind of, you know, who knows, 80% ready, 70% ready, 90% ready, and then, you know, you save so much time basically.
Exactly. Exactly. Cool. So now Axie is kind of like generating the content itself, so we can give it a couple of minutes to do its thing. It is, you know, drafting like pretty extensive pieces, right? It's doing all the market research right now. It's pulling in all your GEO prompts that's optimizing the content for. It is pulling in your target audience, your tone of voice, you know, all your different components within your marketing strategy as well, to ensure that every piece of content that's generated, not only is it GEO optimized, but is also aligned with your strategy, your marketing goals, your business goals as well. So there are quite a lot of inputs that go into this, and we will see as well. One of the things that makes Axie's content so interesting and such like high quality writing is that we are able to pull in like live market news. So every single piece of content is actually informed not only by you know what you have in your marketing strategy, but essentially what is happening right now, right? So it pulls in the latest headlines, competitor updates, or even social trends, you know, to essentially frame this piece of content as commentary on the latest news. And what we have found actually with some of our case studies is that, you know, for our brands and users, Axie users that jump on these trends within 48 hours of a big like announcement going live, their content tends to perform the best, right? And when we're talking about, you know, 5 to 10 times better than their baseline performance of content, of evergreen content that they're publishing, whether is it on GEO, LinkedIn, X, and so on. So this is something that I think essentially is already a core it's a core is really something that, you know, brands can very easily do now with Axie in order to kind of start driving more meaningful traffic.
Yeah, and the thing as well is that the social algorithms, they are looking for that, right? They're looking for relevance. They're not looking
Exactly.
for any evergreen valuable content. They're just looking like, you know, they're very optimized for whatever is popular, basically. So yeah, this is a good feature.
Exactly. And so we'll give it a couple of minutes to load. This is like, you know, Axie is working hard. But in the meantime, you know, we can also very quickly, even though today I know the conversation was largely around like blogs, but we can also very quickly look at like LinkedIn and X and some of the content that.
Maybe a good one to understand is how many like content pieces will Axie deliver, basically.
Yeah. So limits are over here, 5 blogs a week. So the recommendation for how often you should be publishing in order to show up on AI search or meaningfully drive GEO is 1 blog a day. For LinkedIn, you know, 1, 2, 3. I'm done. Great. For LinkedIn, 1, 2, 3 posts a week is a good starting point. For X, you know, obviously as often as possible, right? So let's see. Some of the content is ready. That's it. Oh, it was a LinkedIn content that was ready. Let's see. I think the blog should be ready too. Amazing. This is the Bitcoin yield blog. So, you know, quick call out here. You can see all the inputs that I actually use, your content pillar, your keywords, as well as all the associated prompts for these specific keywords. We just kind of aggregated them just to kind of keep this view short. Your target audience, BTC holders, key messages, as well as all the sources, right? So this includes both internal and external sources to ensure that you have that clean SEO crawlability, internal linking. All of those things are also done automatically for you by Axie. So this is what the blog looks like. And as you can see as well, every section is pretty much standalone, very clear heading, H1, H2, H3 headings, with each section answering very specific questions or explaining very specific concepts. In this case, Bitcoin's role, talking about Bitcoin's role in speculation as a speculative asset, the definition of yield source versus yield wrappers, which is quite interesting in DeFi, and so on. All the different lexicons when it comes to DeFi as well. And so the whole idea is that, as this gets indexed by models and, depending on what people are searching for, if each section can essentially be pretty much displayed as is in answering specific questions that users might have. And so on, obviously always an FAQ section at the end as well. So coming back very quickly to our AI visibility report, we can also kind of see, more granularly, what are the prompts that Axie is optimizing your content for. So a bit more granularity around these specific queries, the sources that are cited for each of these queries. So essentially those that are scored 0 right now are the prompts that IXS is not showing up for. So these are the prompts that Axie would be prioritizing in terms of optimizing content for, answering these questions for in the content calendar. So this prompt. And then lastly is the competitor analysis. So here we can see out of the 10 competitors that we analyzed, IXS actually ranks 4th, which is pretty good, but essentially, a little bit behind all the incumbents in the market, which probably have, much greater volume and authority when it comes to content. And, in order to close this gap, it's really about, how do you then act on these opportunities that Axie surfaces here on a weekly basis.
Good. Very nice. I think if we start implementing this, we should do another call about it.
Yeah.
In a few months.
Exactly. So here you have all the your content calendar as well. So essentially, you have simply view, everything is editable, so the human in the loop can remain, in control. And then from this interface as well, you'll soon be able to schedule for publishing, and that's it, right? So simple as that. Within a couple of clicks every single week, you'll be able to manage, not only monitor your AI search visibility, you'll be able to understand and ingest these search trends and market trends, and then also implement and act on them, right? So this entire cycle that used to take days, if weeks, if not days, now essentially happens within 5 minutes every single week.
Good. Looks really good. Like I like it. I like it.
Thank you. We're super excited. This is some of this is already live. Others are going to be launching very soon. So if anyone in the audience is interested in testing this out for themselves, shoot me a DM. We'll give you 1 month free access to run your analytics, to track your performance, to identify your content opportunities, to act on them within your marketing calendar. And yeah, super curious to start testing this out.
Good. Nice, Robin. It's impressive. It's impressive what you built, and I think it helps out, marketeers like myself, and I think potentially all marketeers, kind of like even the SEO guys that are specialists in SEO, they're not specialists in GEO. So yeah, and it's answering a lot of questions, because the way it transparently shows you what's behind it already gives you kind of the understanding whether it is doing its thing and whether it is good or not, right? So it's I really like that as well.
Amazing. No, thank you. Yeah. And but again, right, like I said, we're all like super early in this journey. We're all kind of co-creating and building at this frontier. And so I think with Axie, we took a slightly different approach. We took an approach of being able to operate these channels, like building out that AI tool and workflow to operate these channels first. And now we are layering the insights and analytics and the data in order to essentially just like improve performance, right?
Yeah.
So compared to some of the other tools in the market that kind of took like a data first approach and then the execution afterwards, or as a separate tool. So essentially our goal with Axie is how do we help marketers essentially manage all of this from a single interface, right? So GEO is just one, all the other channels are also are coming soon as well. So yeah, I mean, we definitely have like a lot to do, a lot to build. But it's essentially like, friends like this, right? Conversations like this that make it all worthwhile.
Yeah, like we will ever be building, and I think the steps you took by building something that is like one interface to really help you execute is yeah, it's very welcome in the industry as well, because that's often a bit a tricky thing. I mean, you can use a lot of the LLMs to, for instance, create content, and but you do not have this like comprehensive overview of the content ideation, what's behind it, etc., and the ability as well to edit in real time and basically optimize like while you're executing, because that's actually what happens here. It's not like you're just sending out, but you're just like while you're building this like output, you're already optimizing basically, which is
Exactly.
yeah, I
Exactly.
really think that is a little bit of a game changer there.
Yeah, I think that's also the core difference, right, between like the legacy,
Mm.
human coordinated way of doing marketing versus something that's a little bit more algorithmic and data driven. And I mean, it's funny, right, what you talked about earlier about how like data driven has been a narrative for over 10 years now, and yet
Yeah.
here we are still.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just in a new stage of data driven marketing. Like that. Yeah, it's but it makes sense. Like if you think about data driven, and I mean, it already existed a little bit, because when like I was like heavily into data driven marketing, there were some prediction models kind of that were predicting certain things in marketing, like user behaviors and
Mm,
all that stuff, right? But those would just define kind of what type of campaign you would do. But what we have now
mm,
is basically we have this, because LLMs and AI is predictive modeling. It's actually now taking all the way towards the creation of the content. It's like, okay, we're not just predicting user behavior, we're just predicting what is better content, basically.
mm,
And
mm, mm.
that's fascinating to see how it evolves. But Robin, I
Yeah.
think you showed a lot in this in this first episode. I
First
don't know.
hangout.
Yeah, if I have to show something on AI native marketing next time, I really have to start working this week, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Man,
Yeah.
I would love to see. We can talk through some of your, solutions that you vibe coded. Like,
Mm.
I think there are essentially so many different ways of solving problems today. Like whether, like I said at
Mm.
the beginning, right, whether you solve it yourself or you look for existing tools. I think a lot of the existing tools in market are also so early. So we're all kind of
Yeah.
like, we're still in this space of like, do you build it yourself or do you just, buy something, right? And so I think that's the entire point of doing this hangout so that we can compare these two options and solutions. And, in
Yeah,
some
like I
cases, like, yeah,
yeah, like I truly believe you have to do both. Like if you don't buy anything, you don't know, you also don't know what to build. You
that's
have to,
true.
you have
That's
to.
true.
And this actually, like, last thing maybe, because like we were running quite over an hour already, I see. But like I've got a good friend that he vibe coded like a content scheduler, like long time before, not long time, like maybe 6 months ago or so. And I was thinking like, yeah, there's all these solutions already out there, and obviously I'm a marketeer and I know all these solutions and stuff, and and this kind of like validates that point. Like, yeah, you do have to test out things to understand, like, what you actually need, because very often there is a
Mm.
tool there that can help you, and if you don't know about it, why would you build it yourself?
Exactly,
Exactly.
exactly. It's a lot of time, right? It just takes a lot of
Yeah.
time, maintenance, expertise required in order to build it yourself. So,
Mm.
you probably spend like 3 days building it and like 1 day a week, like maintaining and using it versus something that you can completely outsource, for like
Mm.
$200 a month, right? So, end of the day, it's just a cost benefit analysis, right? Between like how much
Mm.
your time is worth building and maintaining these tools versus just completely outsourcing it. So that's kind of, I think we're going to start seeing more of that as well over the next, as more of these tools like get more advanced and more like full stack AI, right? Meaning requiring less human input, less human coordination, and it truly is more of an outsourced solution. So yeah, I mean, super excited to see where this goes. And, next week, let's like, check in again to see like where the market is, what's happening, what are the latest tools we want to discuss. But yeah, very excited that, we're done with our very first hangout.
Yeah, it was a good one.
And,
it was a good one. And
yeah.
I'm actually quite pleased to see that one of my clients is not ranking last in
Exactly. Means like what you're doing right now already, like all these tips that you've already been implementing is like,
yeah,
working somewhat.
It is working. Like these little things have worked because like you said, the incumbents were the top 3, which are way larger, right? So we're actually like leading the pack. We were even above another like very big one there. So it shows that the things that we have implemented did have an impact.
Exactly. I think I'm pulling it up here again here. Yeah, exactly. Maple Finance, you're ranking higher than Maple Finance.
Yeah. Well, don't tell them.
But also because it could be like the specificity, right? Like because with Maple Finance, perhaps like what they're ranking for, let me see, could be let's see, maybe perhaps like lending, that makes sense, right? So a bit more specific to their use case. But perhaps for IXS, you guys are ranking for things that are a little bit more specific to your use case, right? So I think a lot of times with a lot of these like big players as well, perhaps like positioning and content, they have like a very like big like aggressive strategy of going after like big concepts, like hard ranking keywords, or like very often like very broad questions that people are searching. But not necessarily the specific, more niche questions people are searching, right? Perhaps that's lower volume, but that is actually where like smaller players, newer players can start showing up for, right? So that's also the different strategies that companies can take.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, cool. Well,
yeah, a lot to think
Robin,
about.
Yeah, a lot to think about. It was a pleasure. And
as always, thank you.
Let's do next week around the same time, I think.
Exactly. We'll chat again next week, and perhaps we'll have more exciting updates then as well. So yeah, as maybe like an outro, main call to action is, if you're interested in the GEO explained document that we're putting together, drop me a connection request and a DM. I'll send it across to you. It's literally just a Google Doc right now, so it's super informal. Really consolidates all the learnings that we have. The second piece is, we're launching our AI search visibility dashboard very, very soon. If this is something that you're interested in checking out for your company, again, drop me a DM. I'll send you access to this. And just to thank everyone for, tuning in and for, hanging out with us as well. We're giving away 1 month free access to Axie. Full access, you'll be able to run the AI visibility report and visibility analysis. You'll be able to generate content, based on the opportunities found. So you'll be able to do all of that and actually see how your visibility ranking, changes over a month, completely free of charge, right? So again, drop us a connection request, drop us a DM, and we hope to have more marketers, in this hangout with us as well, going forward.
Good. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. See ya.